Hi, Elaine Marilacos Edelson, and I have one question for you. How psychic are you? How clairvoyant are you? Oh wait, that's two questions. But anyway, they mean the same thing. You are very psychic. You are so psychic and you don't trust it, but I want to show you something. We're going to do a little exercise in this video that's going to show you how to develop more of your intuitive abilities. So I want to tell you a little story first. A long time ago, 22 years, am I dating myself? 22 years ago, when I first met my husband, Dean, we hung out a lot. We were really good friends, and he was fascinated with what I did for a living as an intuitive and a spiritual counselor. So one day he came to me and he said, hold out your hand. And I said, okay. He said, now close your eyes. So I closed my eyes and he put something in my hand. And it was actually this watch. And he put something in my hand and I didn't know what it was. And I closed my eyes and I felt, and he goes, now feel it. What do you feel? And so I closed my eyes and I just started laughing and I couldn't stop laughing. And it was like I was in a room of people laughing. I laughed so hard and I didn't know what this was. And I opened my eyes and I said, a watch? Do tell. And he said, this is the watch I wear on stage when I perform. My husband was a stand-up comic for 15 years. So psychometry is what we're going to talk about today. Psychometry is part of being intuitive. It's part of being psychic. It's about feeling what others experience through objects. That's as simple as I can put it. So when he put the watch in my hand, I didn't know it was a watch, but I just knew the experience that he was having while he wore this watch. Isn't that cool? And you're going to do the same thing later on. We're going to talk more about that. But first I want to ask you, what do you think psychic means? What does it mean to you? You know, I've asked some people throughout the years and I've gotten answers like, well, you can read people's minds. Or what a handy tool that would be, right? Or you can feel people's feelings. Or you can see what's coming. Or you can see something that other people can't. And yes to all of these things. Everyone is completely different in how they experience their own psychic abilities, their clairvoyance, and their intuition. And all of those three words, clairvoyant, psychic, and intuitive, they're basically the same thing. They're just experienced differently. Because you might be able to sense something, you might be able to see something, hear something, taste or smell something, or you just get an idea. I remember doing a test in a group that I had once to see, and I used psychometry, to see how people experienced their own intuition. So I had an object, it was actually a ring of mine, and I had everybody close their eyes. There were 4 people in this group, and it was kind of like a test study for me to see, as I developed this program, how I can help you to develop your intuitive abilities even more. So I gave them a ring each, and these were rings that I had been wearing. So it wasn't something that was, you know, collecting dust in my jewelry box. This is something active where it held my energy. And I gave each of the women a ring, and they closed their eyes and they felt. Now, of course, I was feeling many different things wearing these pieces of jewelry, so they were going to have different images, different feelings. One woman, one ring actually was given to me by a relative. It was my grandmother's ring. And my grandmother loved to make toast, okay? So I know that's funny. I would visit her, she would make me a loaf of bread. We'd have a good time, so tea and some toast. Anyway, she gave me a ring. And that was the ring that I gave to Diane. So Diane held the ring and she closed her eyes and she said, you know, I'm smelling something. It's not something burning, but it smells like food. It smells like food is cooking. And that was her experience. So I had her sit with that, and then I gave someone else a ring and she said, I don't see anything. I don't smell anything, but I feel really happy. I feel so happy, and I feel like I'm on the ocean. I feel like I'm on the ocean is what she said. And I had given her my engagement ring, which was bought in St. Martin, the stone. And it was given to me on a cruise. And so how cool is that, right? So, and on it went with each of the pieces of jewelry. One gal could smell something, and I validated her experience. And these were women who were just beginning to learn about their intuitive sense. Kathy, who held my engagement stone, she says she doesn't see things. She doesn't dream very vividly often, or she doesn't experience intuition in her mind. She feels it in her body. So she gets a sense of something. And then the third ring that I had given to Jill, she held this ring, and she was a very practical person. Someone who doubted that, she even had any kind of intuitive sense. And the other ladies were like, yeah, let's all be psychic and, work at psychic fairs together. But Jill was a trained nurse, and, she needed evidence, and that's cool. So when she held a ring that was very near and dear to me, given to me by my father and mother on my 16th birthday, it was my sweet 16 present. It was a very small ring. And when she held it, she felt nothing at first. And so I let her just sit on her own while the rest of the gals and I discussed their experience. And then Jill said, I feel really sad. And I said, why? And she said, I don't know if what I'm feeling is my feeling, and I don't know if what I'm feeling is real, because she didn't trust it. But she said, all I can see are these beautiful emeralds. And these emeralds that, but she said, and this was interesting, this was really interesting, how her intuition worked. She said, I can sense these emeralds, and I had given her, the ring had little tiny emerald stones in it. But she hadn't seen it, so she knew, she could feel, she could see the emerald, so her clairvoyance was kicking in. But the sadness, and I took the ring back, I took all the rings back, and I said, Jill, let's explore this. And she said, I don't know if it's my experience, but I kept seeing my grandmother. And I said, oh, tell me about your grandmother. Tell me the story about your grandmother. And she said, my grandmother had to raise 5 kids on her own. My grandfather had died, etc. She went on about how poor her grandmother was, how hard she had it, how much she had to work for every single penny. And she said, and that's what I feel with this ring. And I said, isn't that interesting? My parents come from the same background. Even though you were holding something beautiful, emeralds, my father and mother were finally able to afford an emerald ring for me, which was really cool and very special. And to this day I have it, and it's going to be given to our daughter when she turns 16. But at the time, they didn't have a lot of anything else. So this was really profound for my parents to be able to afford this. And so that she sensed her own family's poverty and the consciousness around it and the sadness that went with it because of her experience. And I said, ladies, pay close attention. When you are experiencing something that you can't quite put your finger on, but your brain's comes up with an image and it reminds you of something, your intuition is speaking to you. That's exactly what was happening to Jill. And she was blown away by the fact that she could feel these feelings, and then we sorted out all of her intuitive hits. They were, she was seeing things, she was clairvoyant, she was intuiting things, she could feel things. And when you break down your intuitive abilities and you just put it under the guise of psychic, there's going to be many different experiences for you. So just like the women in my test group and what they were feeling, they all were in a state of awe. They were so excited to go home and start feeling jewelry and computers and robes and whatever else they wanted to feel, so that they could pick up on what was happening and then be validated. And I think that's very key for a lot of people who doubt their intuition. They're not validated. Because as soon as I give you something to hold in psychometry and you hold it and you say, oh, your expectation might be, this is a watch and you bought it in 1947 and it's black and, it's that literal. Sometimes being psychic is not that literal, but you'll get your senses kick in, all of them. your five senses kick in. Your ability to see, to hear, to smell, to taste, and the touch. You'll feel things, and the intuition begins to heighten. So it's really important that when you practice this exercise that we're about to do, that you don't down yourself, that you don't think, oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm really not psychic, or I don't know how to be clairvoyant, or, this isn't working for me. You're already clairvoyant. That's right, you are already psychic. And it's a really powerful tool that you can use in your everyday life, for business, for romance, for relationships, for your own health. Just to intuit. I have a client who will use her intuitive abilities when she goes food shopping because she has a lot of allergens that she's working on, releasing. And until she can heal them, she will literally scan her hand in the, produce aisle, and she'll get a feeling like, even though grapefruits are supposed to be good for you or apples are supposed to be good for you, she'll just get a feeling. And she tested this feeling. She really wanted an apple. She wanted a gala apple, in fact. And she went to the produce market, and she went to the aisle that had all the, the organic produce, because she's a natural person and a healthy person. And she went to reach for the apple, and her body said no. She's like, but it's organic and it's gala. It's my favorite kind. I want an apple. And she went, no. She said, I'm going to get it anyway. I don't know what's going on with me. Maybe I'm busy. Maybe it was the traffic. So she starts to doubt everything that was happening. So she takes the apple and she buys it. She goes home and she eats it. She got the worst stomach ache that she'd ever had eating apples, and she couldn't figure it out. So we had a little chat about it, and I said, perhaps your body was saying, not that day, maybe another day. You need to listen to what's going on intuitively, so that it's a very subtle voice. Everyone wishes that they had that magic crystal ball. Well, I want to show you something. I have 3 crystal balls right here. All kinds. Amethyst, there's tourmaline in the middle one, and there's a clear crystal ball. And wouldn't it be great if you could just wave your hand over the crystal ball, that's this big, and that would cost you maybe $1,000. And you'd wave your hand and you'd see like an image, and it'd be like, no, go on the Yellow Brick Road or whatever, flying monkeys. Okay, I have used crystal balls, and that method is called scrying. We're not going to talk about that today. But if you held a crystal ball that was in someone's pocket for a few days, you definitely would, via psychometry, you'd feel what that person was feeling. You would experience what that person was experiencing. Now, it takes time to have consistent experiences, so then you can be validated and say, I felt this is, and then you communicate that, and that person says, yes, that's what I was feeling. So don't always expect it to be very literal or black and white. And sometimes it may be, but other times it may not be. So right now I want you to grab something that belongs to someone else without stealing it. Just borrow. And I also read my husband's computer once. That's why I mentioned that earlier. I just read, literally not read the computer, but intuitively read it. And I put my hands around the computer and I closed my eyes, and it took me a few moments, but I saw all these words. And I said, you're writing something. You're writing something really profound. And all I can see is a moose. And I see this moose, and it's walking through town. I said, what is that about? And he laughed, and he just started laughing. He said, I'm writing an episode for a TV show that was back in the 80s called Northern Exposure. So if you're old enough to remember that, it was a really cool show. Anyway, there at the beginning of every episode in Northern Exposure, a moose walks through the town. So I saw that in his computer just by intuiting what he was writing, an episode for that show. So it's really cool. So all right, did you grab something now? Maybe a watch, a ring, a bracelet, maybe someone's eyeglasses. Now this is something, remember, that someone has been using for a while, not where it's been stored in the back of the closet, because that kind of feeling is muddled, it's darker, it's just not as active. So now that you have your item, I want you to close your eyes and take a deep breath and exhale, and do a few of those. I want you to get really settled in now. Sit with your back comfortably straight and your eyes closed, and you're going to place the object in your hand, And then you're going to place your other palm, in your palm actually, and you're going to place the other palm over it. And you're just going to relax your arms so that you're comfortable. And I want you to take a few minutes, even if you're not doing it now while I'm talking on this video, I want you to do it constantly, every day, a few minutes a day. This kind of practice is going to help you to tune in. So once you're holding it, I'd like you to be aware of where the information starts to come in. Just a little at a time. Maybe you feel something. Maybe you can hear something. Perhaps you smell something. Maybe you can even taste something. Or if you don't see it clearly in your mind, you get a sense of it. And here's the other tip in psychometry. If someone in your life comes into your awareness very strongly, I want you to just take note of that, because that information is giving you an open door to the thing, the object that is in your hand. So let's say, as you're holding this object, you think of your best friend, and your best friend gave you a piece of jewelry for your birthday last year, and all the feelings that surround it. And even though it's not the same piece of jewelry or item in your hand, this is the very strong sense that you're getting with this image of your best friend giving you a piece of jewelry for your birthday last year. And then once you relax into the feeling and stop fighting it or doubting it or thinking, why am I thinking of Susan when I should be focused on this thing in my hand? As long as you are relaxed, you're going to allow images, feelings, and sensations to come to you and then to come out of you. So it's a flow, and it's a conversation between you and all the senses around you and your intuition. So you can open your eyes now, and once you let go of the object and you're ready to be validated on that, just think about the images that you received. You can jot them down on a notepad. The feelings that you had, or perhaps it was a very clear picture of a friend talking or feeling a certain way. You want to take note of all your senses, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you see in your mind's eye, and also in your entire awareness, what you're feeling. Because all of these sensations are helping to tune you in to how psychic you are. Isn't it cool how psychic you really are with this psychometry experience? You know, when talking about psychometry and clairvoyance and intuition and being psychic, it's all part of your inner GPS. That's your given psychic sense. And everyone has it. And I'm really excited and would love for you to join me in my upcoming workshop, 3 Simple Steps to Unleashing Your Inner GPS. How to tap into your psychic and clairvoyant abilities without any experience whatsoever. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the workshop.